The entire hall froze as the billionaire's voice rang out, speaking in Japanese. No one could answer except the maid's 10-year-old daughter. She was nearly invisible in the bustling corridors of the Koyama International Arts Center. Her small hands clutched a worn book as her mother, Nia, quietly polished the gleaming wooden floors. A junior executive muttered, "Just the maid's daughter. What could she possibly do here?" The delegation from Okinawa had arrived early, their spokesman speaking only in the Okinawan dialect, and panic rippled through the hall. Then 10-year-old Amora stepped forward, her voice calm and precise. "I will carry your words." The murmur stopped. Kenji Tanaka, the billionaire chairman, leaned forward, his eyes narrowed. "Where did you learn that? Or who taught you to hold such command?" Before we dive in, if you like this kind of stories of overcoming adversity and justice, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We love seeing how far these stories reach. Now, let's jump back in. Enjoy the story. In a hall filled with voices, one pair of eyes never looked up. The maid's daughter moved quietly among them, her presence so slight that most forgot she was even there. Yet, every small step she took carried a weight of silence, a silence that hid more than it revealed. The morning light filtered through the tall, minimalist windows of the Koyama International Arts Center. The air smelled faintly of hinoki wood and polish, the kind that clings to floors cleaned by tired hands before dawn. The soft clatter of shoes and the low hum of conversation filled the vast hall. No one noticed the 10-year-old black girl who sat on a low wooden chair near the service corridor, her feet not quite touching the ground. Her name was Amora, and today, like many days, she carried a book too big for her hands. The pages whispered as she turned them, though her eyes often strayed from the text to her mother. Her mother, Nia, worked as a maid here. Her uniform, a simple grey blouse and dark skirt, worn thin at the elbows, told the story of long hours and little pay. She moved steadily, polishing cloth in hand, bending to the floor as men and women in fine suits passed by. None slowed to greet her. None offered more than a polite, distant nod. Amora watched her mother's shoulders, the slight slump that grew heavier with each week. The family's debts weighed as much as the buckets she carried. Rent notices, unpaid bills, the quiet shame of asking for credit at the corner market. Nia bore all of it without complaint. Yet her daughter saw. She always saw. The people in the hall saw only what they wanted. To them, Nia was just the cleaner. And Amora, sitting there with her book, was only the maid's daughter, too small, too out of place to matter. But in her silence, Amora studied. She traced the curve of the kanji characters on a passing banner, whispering their readings under her breath. Her lips formed the sounds of languages few here would recognize. Korean, Mandarin, Okinawan, even faint strains of formal court Japanese. She had been taught in secret, not in classrooms, but in the quiet evenings when her grandfather's journals lay open on the kitchen table. A veteran, a linguist, a man who once carried honor like a medal. His memory now lived in her mind, word by word. No one here knew that. No one would guess. A voice boomed from the far end of the hall, calling attendants to prepare for Chairman Tanaka's arrival. The sound echoed. Shoes clicked faster against the wood. Amora closed her book carefully and held it to her chest. Her mother glanced over, a small, protective look, before dipping her cloth again. The day had only begun. For now, the rhythm of work and routine kept them hidden in plain sight, as if nothing extraordinary could ever break through. Across the lobby, a group of young assistants gathered near a sculpted bamboo installation. Their voices carried easily. "Too many guests today. We'll be running up and down all morning," one of them sighed. Another laughed, a sharp sound. "At least we don't have her job," he nodded towards Nia, bending over the floor. "Can you imagine?" Amora's fingers tightened on her book, but she said nothing. She was used to these small dismissals. The words were not aimed at her directly, but they always landed close enough. The floor gleamed under Nia's hands, yet no one saw the shine. They only saw the uniform. At the far end, the entrance doors slid open, and a swirl of men in dark suits and traditional yukata stepped in. Their conversation was layered and formal. Their words carried the cadence of standard Japanese tinged with dialects from across the islands. Amora tilted her head, listening. The sound stirred something familiar, like a half-remembered melody. Her lips moved silently, shaping the words she heard, matching them in rhythm and meaning. She knew these dialects, not from school, not from teachers, but from the journals of her grandfather. His notes were pressed into her memory like ink on stone, but no one was watching her. Not yet. Nia glanced again toward her daughter. She moved her supply cart closer as though to draw a protective circle around the little chair where Amora sat today. The clock chimed the quarter hour. A hush swept the room, brief but noticeable. The chairman was near. And in the shifting, a small disturbance was about to surface, one that would place the maid's daughter where no one expected her to stand. The grand doors opened wider. A group of visitors filed in, their shoes tapping against the wood like small hammers. At the back of the group, an elderly man paused, frowning at a sign posted on the wall. It was written in Japanese, but not the standard script he knew. The characters were Okinawan, old and specific, from the Shurinaha dialect. The others walked ahead, unaware. He stayed rooted in confusion, whispering the words to himself. Amora's eyes lifted from her book. She watched his lips move, saw his puzzled brow, and her breath caught. Slowly, she slid from her chair, clutching the book to her chest, and stepped toward him. The hall was noisy, yet her small voice carried clearly when she spoke. "Sir, it says the meeting for the Ryukyuan archives has been moved upstairs. The second hall on the left." The man blinked, startled. He looked down. Only then did he notice her. A small black girl, dressed in a plain blue cotton dress that brushed her knees. "You can read this?" he asked in standard Japanese, his voice sharper than intended. Amora nodded, her gaze steady. "Yes, sir." "It is Uchinaguchi." Her tone was soft, factual, without pride. She spoke the words again in their original dialect, her tongue shaping them with an ease that startled him further. The man stood still, studying her face. "And how did you learn this?" Amora's fingers tightened against the spine of her book. For a moment, she thought of her grandfather, of nights lit by a single lamp, his voice steady as he traced characters on paper. She thought of her mother sitting silently nearby, mending a shirt or peeling potatoes, listening but never interrupting. "I was taught," Amora said simply. Behind them, Nia had stopped polishing. Her shoulders stiffened, watching carefully. She had feared this moment, and yet she had hoped for it. The elderly man glanced toward the others in his group. They had stopped now, curious. Whispers rippled. "A child, speaking Okinawan, strange," one murmured. "She is just the cleaner's daughter." Amora heard it but did not flinch. He gave a small nod, adjusting his jacket. "Thank you, little one." His voice softened, almost respectful now. "Without you, I would have lost myself in these halls." Amora stepped back toward her chair, the weight of many new eyes following her. The silence around her was different now. Less invisible, more questioning. And in that silence, another figure noticed. High above on the second-floor mezzanine, Chairman Kenji Tanaka stood with his advisors. He was a tall man in his late 60s, his hair silvered at the temples, his suit impeccably tailored. He leaned on a simple, elegant cane, a habit from years of ceremony rather than frailty. He had been listening. He had seen the child speak to the lost visitor. And though his face rarely revealed his thoughts, his eyes, sharp, dark, steady, narrowed slightly. "Something wrong, Tanaka-sama?" an aide asked in a low voice. Tanaka did not answer at first. His gaze lingered on the girl. Her composure stirred something in him, a question without a name. "No," he said finally. His voice was calm. "Not wrong. Interesting." Below, Nia resumed her work, pushing the polishing cloth harder than needed. She felt the weight of eyes from above, though she dared not look up. Had her daughter drawn too much attention? Attention could be a blessing, or it could be danger. Amora, unaware of the shift above, had returned to her chair. She opened her book again, her lips moving in silent rhythm, whispering words from yet another tongue. But the chairman kept watching. He noticed how she held the book, careful, almost reverent. He noticed how she sat, not slouched, but upright, as though discipline were woven into her bones. These were not small details. They spoke of training, of something hidden. His advisors continued their chatter, but Tanaka heard none of it. His cane tapped once against the glass railing, a soft signal. One of his men stepped closer. "Keep an eye on the child," Tanaka said quietly. And as the chairman's attention turned toward her, the path of this ordinary day began to bend ever so slightly toward the unexpected. The hall grew noisier as visitors settled into their meetings. Amid the busyness, one figure detached from the flow. He was a man in his 40s, dressed in a sharp, dark suit. His name was Mr. Soto, a mid-level advisor to Chairman Tanaka, known for his sharp eyes and his ability to weigh a person without speaking a sentence. Mr. Soto walked with deliberate calm toward the service corridor where Amora sat with her book. Nia noticed first. She straightened, her eyes flicking to her daughter, then back to the approaching man. She stayed silent, but every part of her was alert. Mr. Soto stopped near the chair. He looked down at Amora, his expression unreadable, glancing at the book in her lap. "What are you reading?" His voice was even, neither harsh nor soft. Amora looked up. Her eyes were clear. "Poems," she answered. By Basho, Mr. Soto's brow moved just a fraction. He studied her face for signs of childish fantasy, but her calm did not waver. "You understood the sign earlier?" he asked. Amora nodded once. "Yes, how many languages do you know?" Her answer came without hesitation, but without pride. 3, and several dialects. The words hung in the air. Mr. Soto tilted his head, studying her longer. He expected a child's fidgeting, perhaps nervous laughter. Instead, she held her silence. Behind them, Nia shifted her weight. She longed to step forward, to shield her daughter, but stopped herself. Amora's composure asked for space. Mr. Soto's gaze softened, though only slightly. "Who taught you?" Amora hesitated. "My grandfather," she said at last. "And my mother." Mr. Soto glanced at Nia, acknowledging her for the first time. She bowed her head slightly, not speaking. Silence stretched between them. Then Mr. Soto gave a small nod. "Very well." He stepped back, his tone shifting. "Would you be willing to come upstairs for a moment?" "The chairman may want a word." Nia's heart stilled. Amora closed her book gently. She looked to her mother. Nia's lips parted, but she did not speak. Only a faint nod escaped her. Amora rose from her chair, and with that small, quiet movement, the maid's daughter stepped toward a place she was never meant to stand. The staircase curved like a ribbon of pale wood, leading to the second floor where light poured in through tall windows. Amora walked beside Mr. Soto, her small sandals tapping softly on each step. Behind her, Nia followed. Her grey blouse clung with the dampness of work. The air changed as they ascended. Downstairs, the scents were of polish and dust. Here, the fragrance of green tea drifted in the air. The walls were lined with minimalist art, and soft carpets muffled their footsteps. A double door of frosted glass opened, and they stepped into the chairman's reception hall. It was spacious yet quiet, lined with shelves of books and ancient calligraphy. A long table stood at the center, polished until it shone. Around it sat men of stature, scholars and executives, all pausing as the child entered. Nia's step slowed, her heart pounding. She moved closer to her daughter. Her hand twitched as if to rest on Amora's shoulder, but she stopped herself. At the head of the room stood Chairman Tanaka. His dark suit was impeccable. He rested both hands on his cane, his eyes never leaving the girl. "This is her." His voice was low but carried. "Yes, Chairman," Mr. Soto replied. Amora bowed her head politely. "Good afternoon, Tanaka-sama." Her voice was soft, but it traveled cleanly. A ripple moved through the room. Some murmured, others scoffed quietly. Tanaka raised a hand, silencing them. He noticed her composure, the stillness rare in children. Nia lowered her eyes, clutching the handle of her cleaning caddy, still in her hand. Here, she was tolerated, not welcomed. But her daughter had just crossed an invisible threshold. The chairs creaked softly as the men leaned forward. The chairman gestured for Amora to sit at the end of the long polished table. The seat dwarfed her small frame, but she did not squirm. She set her book gently on the table, her hands folded neatly on top. Nia stood just behind her, caddy placed discreetly by the wall. Tanaka's voice carried no sharpness, only calm weight. "They tell me you read Okinawan, yes, Chairman?" "And Korean," Amora nodded. And others' murmurs rustled across the table. One scholar leaned closer, whispering, "Impossible at her age." Tanaka silenced them with a glance. "Tell me how." Amora hesitated, choosing her words. "My grandfather was a soldier and a teacher. He served in many places. He wrote what he saw, what he heard. He left journals." Her small fingers brushed the edge of her book. "He showed me letters when I was little. My mother read to me when he no longer could." Nia's throat tightened. She had not expected to be named in this grand hall. For a second, her eyes met Tanaka's. She gave the smallest nod, confirming what her daughter had said. The chairman's brow moved slightly. "Your grandfather's name?" Amora lifted her chin a little. Sergeant Marcus Cole. The name stirred no recognition, but the story did. A black American soldier who mastered Japanese dialects was a tale of immense dedication. Tanaka leaned heavier on his cane. His eyes softened, but only for a fleeting moment. "I respect a man of such discipline." Nia's hand brushed the fabric of her skirt. She remembered nights when Marcus coughed, too weak to hold a pen, but still insisted on reciting foreign verses to his granddaughter. She remembered selling her jewelry to buy ink and paper. She remembered, but she stayed silent. Around the table, skepticism remained, yet curiosity had taken root. And with the seed of her lineage planted, the deeper layers of sacrifice would begin to unfold. The chamber doors opened suddenly. A young executive hurried in, a tablet clutched in his hands. His forehead shone with sweat as he bowed. "Tanaka-sama," he said quickly. "The delegation from Okinawa has arrived early. They are waiting." He hesitated. "Their spokesman speaks only in formal Uchinaguchi. We have no one ready." The word stirred unease. The translator was scheduled for tomorrow, an advisor muttered. "This will cause insult." Tanaka tapped his cane once, the sharp sound echoing. The room stilled. His eyes moved back to Amora. The pause lasted only a breath. "Bring the girl," he said simply. Gasps whispered at the edges of the hall. A child to represent them? Impossible. Dangerous. Absurd. Nia's breath caught. She stepped closer, placing a protective hand on the back of the chair. "She is only a child," she murmured, unable to hide her fear. But Tanaka did not move his gaze. "And yet she understands what no one else here does." His tone was final. Amora rose slowly. She held her book against her chest, not as a shield, but as a reminder. Nia leaned down, her lips close to her daughter's ear. "Be careful," she whispered. "Speak slowly. Do not let them trap you with pride." Amora gave the faintest nod. She met her mother's eyes for a moment, as though to say, "I will carry this well." Mr. Soto stepped forward to guide her. The weight of every gaze pressed upon her, but her shoulders did not fold. Nia followed as far as the threshold, then stopped, whispering a prayer under her breath. The conference room was smaller but carried great attention. Heavy shoji screens muted the light. Around a low-polished table sat the delegation from Okinawa, for men in formal attire. Their voices overlapped, low and sharp, frustration simmering. They stopped when Amora entered. Mr. Soto gestured quietly for her to step forward. The eldest delegate narrowed his eyes. "A child," he said in the Okinawan dialect, his tone cutting through the air like a blade. Amora lowered her head politely, then raised it again with calm. In their dialect, pure and clear, she answered, "Yes, I am young, but I can carry your words safely across this table." The men leaned back, surprise flashing in their eyes. The eldest folded his arms. "So you claim?" Amora did not argue. She simply gestured to the papers he carried. "Please begin." The man spoke a long string of words layered with idioms rarely heard outside his home islands. His tone was deliberate, meant to test. Amora listened without blinking. When he finished, she turned toward Mr. Soto and the attending executives. In flawless, formal Japanese, she translated every phrase with precision, capturing not only meaning but cadence. The room shifted. The eldest tapped the table once, the gesture of a man who had just tested steel and found it solid. Silence followed, heavy yet respectful. The eldest delegate finally nodded. "We accept her words." "She carries them well." Whispers began to spread beyond those walls, carried not by the girl, but by the men who had just witnessed her. Word spread quickly, a soft wind through the corridors. The delegates returned to their meetings, recounting the astonishing fluency of the maid's daughter. Back in the main hall, the murmurs had begun. Executives who had previously ignored Nia and her daughter now exchanged curious glances. Amora sat quietly in her chair, book once again resting in her lap. She felt the change in the air. Eyes lingered longer. Conversations dipped lower when she passed. Nia's pulse throbbed in her throat. She heard fragments of gossip. Admiration, yes, but also resentment. "A child, and a janitor's daughter," one assistant muttered. "Let them talk," Nia thought. "Let her walk the path she earned." Mr. Soto returned briefly. He nodded once, silently approving. "Well done," he murmured. His voice carried no fanfare, only acknowledgement. Amora looked up briefly at her mother. Nia's eyes were bright yet restrained, pride hidden behind caution. No words were needed. In this quiet recognition, Amora understood something. Respect could be reclaimed without declaration. It arrived silently in the shift of posture, the tone of whispered conversations, the reluctant admiration of skeptics. And as the afternoon sun tilted through the tall windows, the first seeds of acknowledgement had taken root. Chairman Kenji Tanaka sat at the head of the long table, his eyes focused entirely on the small figure before him. "Amora," he said, using her name for the first time. "I have watched your work today. You have a rare gift, and it deserves more than whispers." The room was still. Amora's gaze flicked to her mother. Pride shone quietly in Nia's eyes. Tanaka leaned forward. "I will offer you guidance, access to lessons, and mentorship. Not as a favor, but as recognition of your ability." Amora's fingers tightened slightly on her book. The chance to step beyond her world was here. Nia cleared her throat softly. "Tanaka-sama," she said carefully. "How can I be sure she will not be exploited?" The chairman's eye softened toward her, acknowledging her caution. "She will not. The opportunity is hers to earn. You will remain close. Protection is yours, but the path is hers." Amora lowered her head briefly, the smallest nod confirming both gratitude and comprehension. "The lessons will begin tomorrow," Tanaka said. "Your mother may accompany you. But now, your gift is acknowledged. Use it well." With the chairman's words, the doors to a world previously forbidden began to open. A message from the northern delegation had been misinterpreted, a small error that could snowball into insult. The advisors whispered urgently. Tanaka tapped his cane lightly. "Amora," he said, his voice calm but firm. "The matter requires clarity. Can you assist?" Amora rose. The letter was full of idioms layered in dialects that shifted mid-sentence. Amora studied the text, lips moving faintly. Then, without hesitation, she spoke. Her voice was calm, precise, translating the letter's true meaning to the assembled council. She clarified cultural references and aligned expectations. The tension dissolved. Tanaka rose slightly. "The matter is resolved." Thanks to her precision. "Well done, Amora." For a fleeting moment, the room was still, not with tension, but with recognition. And with that recognition came something tangible, a reward that would change both their lives. Chairman Tanaka stood before the gathered advisors. Amora, your precision and judgment have resolved issues even seasoned interpreters could not. Today, I formally acknowledge your gift. He gestured to a sealed envelope. This scholarship ensures your education will be supported. Amora's fingers closed over the envelope, feeling its weight, not of paper, but of possibility. Then Tanaka turned to Nia. And to the mother who nurtured this talent, who sacrificed silently, you are recognized as well. Your position here is secured with respect and fair remuneration. The company will also provide an honorarium sufficient to settle your debts and improve your home. Immediately the room was hushed. The gesture was not charity. It was respect earned. Nia's throat tightened. She blinked rapidly, suppressing tears. The janitor's uniform, grey and plain, stood beside the tailored suit of the billionaire, and everyone understood the bridge that had been crossed. Tanaka had stepped away, leaving the room under the supervision of a visiting board member, Minister Ishikawa, a man known for his unyielding traditionalism. His gaze fell on Amora. You are the girl who translated for the Okinawan delegation? He asked, his voice cutting. Amora lifted her head. Yes, sir. He arched a brow. A child, and the daughter of a maid, leading discussions for trained interpreters. Are we to trust your understanding is accurate? Nia tensed beside her. Amora's voice was measured. Accuracy is not determined by age or station, only by understanding. Ishikawa's eyes narrowed. Understanding alone does not suffice. You have yet to face real pressure. There is a message from the Eastern Trade Council, complex and layered. Translate it. Any error, and we will see your limitations. Amora inclined her head, opening her book to a blank page. This was the moment of undeniable proof. The message lay on the table, dense with layered dialects. Minister Ishikawa watched closely, anticipating error. Amora did not speak at once. Instead, her lips moved faintly, tracing the rhythms of the text. Then, she began. Her voice was small but clear, precise in tone, translating every idiom into modern, formal Japanese. She clarified meanings without hesitation and conveyed nuances even trained interpreters might have missed. The council members leaned closer, eyes widened. The complexity of the document was communicated flawlessly. One delegate whispered, a child, and yet perfect. Ishikawa's eyes narrowed, then softened. A silence stretched across the room, heavy with astonishment. It appears I was wrong, he admitted quietly. Your understanding is beyond question. Recognition replaced doubt. Nia's eyes glistened with unspilled tears. She had watched her daughter claim the proof she had earned through years of unseen discipline. A smaller audience had gathered, advisors and junior clerks, their expressions open, awaiting the words of the child who had turned skepticism into acknowledgement. Amora stood near the polished table. I have learned, she began softly, that the value of a person is not determined by the work they perform, nor the place they are born. It is measured by the care and discipline they bring to their tasks. Nia stood at the back, a silent witness. Amora continued, her voice steady. Knowledge, skill, and patience cannot remain hidden forever. They will be seen if nurtured with care. Respect is not given lightly. It is earned through consistency and honesty. And when it is recognized, it changes not just one life, but the lives of all who surround it. The room absorbed the lesson quietly. The small apartment they returned to felt different. The walls seemed lighter in the afternoon sun. Nia stood in the kitchen, her grey uniform replaced by a crisp new top. She folded her old maid's uniform carefully, each crease a memory. It would rest folded, never to be worn in service again. Amora sat at the small table, the scholarship letter and the check resting before her. They were tangible proof that quiet courage could transform a life. Nia approached, placing a hand on her daughter's shoulder. Amora looked up. No words were needed. They shared a quiet embrace, brief but profound. Together, they had walked from invisibility to recognition. We did it, Amora said softly. Nia nodded. We did. And this is only the beginning. Her voice trembled, not from fear, but from a lifetime of hope finally realized. Outside, life continued, but within these walls, time felt paused, sacred. They sat together, not as maid and daughter, but as two witnesses to a life transformed, a quiet triumph that would resonate far beyond their home.